the very start of the story, we meet the male lead Woo Jin, a quiet and thoughtful young man who enjoys riding his bicycle through the city. One ordinary day while cycling along his usual route, he suddenly stops when something unusual catches his attention. Standing nearby is a young girl, completely absorbed in her own world. She's gazing up at the sky, lifting her hand and shaping her fingers into the outline of a rabbit as if playing with the clouds. The sight instantly fascinates Woo Jin. From that moment on, he begins to notice her everywhere. He later reflects that every time he sees her, she feels like a mystery he cannot solve. During the second encounter, he notices that she is wearing mismatched shoes. Surprisingly, she doesn't seem bothered by it at all. Instead, she hums softly to herself as though the noise and chaos of the world around her don't exist. To Woo Jin, it feels as if she is living inside her own private universe. This strange yet innocent behavior only deepens his interest. The third time he sees her, Woo Jin is walking with his friends when an accident happens. An elderly woman carrying water bumps into the girl, splashing her completely. The girl had been so focused on the book she was reading that she didn't even realize what was happening until she was soaked. Watching this, Woo Jin feels an unexpected tug at his heart. When he returns home later that day, he can't stop thinking about her. He sits down and begins to draw her from memory, carefully sketching her expression and posture. His nephew Chan notices the drawing and asks who the girl is. Woo Jin admits that he doesn't actually know her but confesses that he desperately wants to. Chan presses further, asking if he at least knows her name. This question triggers a memory in Woo Jin's mind. He recalls a moment from earlier when a girl had suddenly run toward this mysterious girl, calling out the name Sumi. At the time, Woo Jin had assumed that was her name. However, now that he thinks back on it, he realizes he never truly confirmed whether the name belonged to her or not. Even so, the name lingers in his thoughts. The next day, the story shifts to reveal more about the girl Woo Jin has been quietly admiring. She is shown giving a violin audition at school. From the very first note, it is clear that she is extraordinarily talented. She plays with confidence, deep emotion, and complete dedication, losing herself in the music. The judges are visibly impressed and ask about her identity. A teacher steps forward and introduces her as Seori, revealing her true name to the audience. Later, Woo Jin sees her again performing the familiar gesture, looking up at the sky and forming a rabbit shape with her fingers, smiling as if she's sharing a secret with the clouds. Still confused about her name, Woo Jin carefully looks at her gym uniform and notices a name written on it, Sumi. Overjoyed, he assumes he has finally learned the name of the girl he likes so much. He doesn't realize that she is wearing her best friend's uniform by mistake. This misunderstanding, though small, will later cause many complications. At home, Woo Jin finishes his drawing of her and feels an unfamiliar happiness. He quietly admits to himself that he never expected his feelings to grow this strong. Without realizing it, she has become his first love. The story then returns to the present and focuses more closely on Seori's daily life. She walks to school while humming softly, completely immersed in music. To her, melodies exist everywhere. Because she is so distracted, she nearly trips over something in her path. At the last moment, her best friend Sumi grabs her and asks if she accidentally wore her uniform again. Seori apologizes sincerely and explains that she washed it and brought it back. However, when she opens her bag instead of the uniform, she finds her beloved dog. Sumi sighs and points out that Seori is always so lost in her music that she can't keep track of ordinary things. Embarrassed, Seori apologizes once more. Suddenly, a male student approaches Seori dramatically and declares his love for her, even asking her to marry him. This boy named Tai Hyun is known for his loud personality and overconfidence. He proudly announces that he plans to follow Seori to Germany to support her during her violin competition, claiming that he will master the German language before then. His speech is cut short when their Korean teacher arrives, scolding him for his poor grades and lack of discipline. Tai Hyun insists that he's preparing to become a K-pop star and needs to look stylish. The teacher is unimpressed and drags him away by the ear while Seori and Sumi burst into laughter. Later, Woo Jin and Chan are waiting for a bus when Chan suddenly points out that the girl from Woo Jin's drawing is nearby. Woo Jin turns and sees Seori reading a music book while walking, once again at risk of spilling water on herself. Without thinking, Woo Jin shouts Sumi from behind. Startled, Seori looks up just in time to avoid the accident. Woo Jin hides embarrassed and wonders why she is always walking while reading. On the bus, Woo Jin sits quietly, lost in thought when Seori approaches him and asks for directions to the art hall. Seeing her up close for the first time, Woo Jin is completely stunned. After a moment of awkward confusion, he explains which stop she should get off at. Seori thanks him politely and returns to her seat. Woo Jin debates whether to approach her again and give her the painting he drew, but fear holds him back. As the bus nears her stop, he panics, realizing this might be his only chance. Gathering all his courage, he approaches her and advises her to get off at the next stop instead, as it is closer to her destination. Seori thanks him once again. Trying to explain himself, Woojin nervously blurts out that he has known her for a long time. Realizing how strange that sounds, he quickly clarifies and says he simply wants to give her something. Just as he is about to take out the drawing, Sumi appears and questions who he is. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, Woojin stuffs the painting back into his bag, jumps off the bus, and runs away. As he berates himself for being a coward, he suddenly notices that he is holding Seori's keyring, which he accidentally grabbed while fleeing. Panicking, he sprints after the bus using shortcuts through the streets. At the same time, disaster strikes. A truck carrying stacked tires loses control, causing the tires to spill across the road. Vehicles collide, chaos erupts, and one tire crashes into the bus, throwing it off balance. Inside, Seori and Sumi are thrown into panic. Woojin arrives just in time to witness the horrifying scene as the bus crashes violently, leaving its passengers unconscious. Woojin stands frozen, unable to believe that the girl he has just begun to love is lying inside the wreckage. The story continues in the aftermath of the devastating accident. Emergency sirens fill the air as ambulances rush the injured away from the crash site. One by one, victims are transported to the nearest hospital, where doctors and nurses scramble to respond to the overwhelming number of patients. Among those brought in is Seori, whose condition is extremely critical. She is immediately taken into intensive care. News channels quickly pick up the story, broadcasting urgent reports that describe the incident as one of the worst traffic disasters the city has ever witnessed. A bus and more than a dozen vehicles collided in a chain reaction, leaving countless people wounded and several fighting for their lives. The hospital corridors are filled with panic, grief, and confusion. Families cry, doctors shout instructions, and nurses rush from room to room. In the middle of this chaos, Seori's aunt can be seen collapsing in tears. She clutches her phone with shaking hands as she desperately calls her husband, sobbing uncontrollably while begging him to come quickly. Her grief is raw and overwhelming, reflecting the fear that Seori may not survive. Elsewhere, Tae-hyun hears about the accident and immediately races toward the hospital. His heart pounds as he runs, barely able to process what he has heard. In his haste, he bumps into a woman he doesn't recognize. Their collision is brief and her identity remains unknown for now, but Tae-hyun doesn't stop. He continues forward, tears streaming down his face, terrified of what he might find. Inside the hospital, Seori's condition suddenly worsens. Her heartbeat becomes dangerously unstable, and doctors are forced to use defibrillators in a desperate attempt to revive her. The medical staff work tirelessly, refusing to give up on her even as the situation grows more dire. At the same time, Woojin wanders alone through the streets, completely numb. His mind is clouded with dread as he hears news broadcasts repeating the horrifying details of the accident. Reporters announce that nearly 100 people have been seriously injured and 2 lives have been lost. The victims are identified, one is an adult man and the other is a teenage girl named Sumi. The moment Woojin hears the name, his world collapses. His legs weaken and he can barely stand. He becomes convinced that the girl he cared for, the girl he believes was named Sumi, is dead. In reality, it was Seori's best friend who lost her life, not Seori herself. But because Woojin misunderstood Seori's name from the very beginning, he believes the worst. Consumed by guilt, Woojin convinces himself that everything happened because of him. If he had never called out to her on the bus, if he hadn't asked her to get off at a different stop, none of this would have happened. Overcome with remorse, he breaks down completely, crying as he blames himself for the loss of his first love. The story then leaps forward many years into the future. Seori is now a fully grown woman, but she remains unconscious. 13 long years have passed since the accident and she has never opened her eyes. Her life has been frozen in time, trapped in an endless sleep. 2 nurses quietly speak outside her hospital room. One mentions that Seori is completely alone. Her uncle and aunt abandoned her long ago, unable or unwilling to continue caring for her. However, someone has been paying her hospital bills all these years. Strangely, the nurses have never seen this person clearly. The other nurse asks if that means no one ever visits Seori. The first nurse shakes her head and explains that someone does come once every month without fail. That person turns out to be Tae-hyun, who is no longer the loud, carefree boy he once was. He has grown into a highly respected and successful doctor. One of his colleagues asks him why he continues to reject job offers from prestigious hospitals overseas. They suspect the reason is Seori, who isn't even his family. Tae-hyun doesn't respond. He doesn't need to explain. Deep down, he still loves her and believes that one day she will wake up. It's revealed that Tae Hyun once dreamed of becoming a K-pop idol. However, after the accident, he abandoned that dream entirely. Instead, he studied relentlessly, pushing himself beyond his limits, choosing medicine so that he could one day help Seori recover. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure is occasionally seen standing outside Seori's hospital room, watching her silently. Whenever staff members approach, the person disappears, leaving behind only questions. One day, the hospital holds a small event and music fills the halls. A young girl plays the violin nearby. The sound drifts into Seori's room, reaching her ears for the first time in years. The melody stirs something deep within her mind. Memories begin to surface, moments from her past, laughter, friendship, dreams. Slowly, against all odds, Seori awakens. Confused and terrified, she tries to understand where she is. Her thoughts are jumbled. She believes the accident happened only yesterday. She wonders why her body won't move and why no sound comes from her mouth. Panic sets in as she struggles to make sense of her condition. A nurse enters the room and nearly drops what she's holding when she sees Seori awake. Doctors rush in, stunned by the miracle unfolding before them. They gently ask her questions, starting with her name. With great effort, Seori whispers that her name is Seori. Everyone is overjoyed until Seori asks an unsettling question. She points at someone who has been staring at her and asks who that woman is. The room falls silent. She's pointing at her own reflection in the mirror. Seori still sees herself as a teenager. The medical staff slowly explain the truth. She has been unconscious for 13 years. She is no longer 17 but 30. Seori refuses to believe it. She insists they must be wrong. When she looks at herself in the mirror again, she breaks down, unable to recognize the woman staring back. Outside, doctors explain that Seori is suffering from severe psychological shock. Losing 13 years of her life is something no one can easily accept. As Seori struggles with her shattered reality, memories of her past resurface, promises she made with Sumi about their futures, dreams that were never fulfilled. The realization that her youth is gone forever crushes her spirit. Meanwhile, Woo Jin is shown again, also 30 years old now but completely transformed. He is cold, distant, and emotionally hollow. He lives far away from Korea, isolated from everyone. Calls from friends and family go unanswered until his sister convinces him to return home to take care of his nephew. Back in his quiet home, Woo Jin pets a dog, the same dog Seori once cherished. He still keeps the painting he drew of her all those years ago, a silent reminder of the love he believed he lost. And unknown to both of them, their paths are about to cross again. The story shifts focus to Chan, the young man who has always lived under the same roof as Woo Jin. Chan is Woo Jin's sister's son, and although Woo Jin has spent years emotionally distant from the world, Chan has remained a constant presence in his life. Now grown into a confident teenager, Chan is a high school student known for his discipline and leadership. He serves as the captain of his school's rowing team and has set his sights on winning the national championship. His entire routine revolves around training, teamwork, and pushing himself beyond his limits. By his side are his two inseparable friends Do and Dong. Do is chubby, loud, and endlessly sarcastic, while Dong is sharp-tongued and always ready to stir trouble. After listening to their coach deliver a passionate speech meant to fire them up, Chan confidently declares that he feels energized and ready to conquer the competition. Do immediately ruins the moment by teasing him, reminding him that the heart is located on the left side of the chest, not the right. Dong pretends to be confused and asks since when that has been true. Do responds by spraying Dong in the face, loudly declaring that from now on, that's how things are. The three burst into laughter, their playful dynamic highlighting Chan's warm and youthful energy. When Chan learns that his uncle Woo Jin is finally returning to Korea, his excitement becomes impossible to contain. He immediately insists on treating his friends to food to celebrate the reunion. Do and Dong enthusiastically agree, thrilled by the idea of free food and equally curious about the mysterious Uncle Chan rarely talks about. At the same time, Seori continues her recovery at the hospital. She undergoes physical therapy daily, struggling to regain control of her body after years of unconsciousness. Walking even a few steps is exhausting and she often stumbles and falls. Still, she refuses to give up. Each fall only strengthens her determination to stand again. When her nurse comes to administer her medication, Seori bombards her with questions. She anxiously asks about her best friend Sumi and wonders when her uncle and aunt will come to take her home. The nurse hesitates, clearly troubled. After a long pause, she lies gently, telling Saori that Sumi is perfectly fine and was not seriously injured. She adds that Saori's uncle and aunt will arrive soon. The nurse claims she checked everything online. Hearing this, Saori is overwhelmed with relief and happiness, completely unaware that the truth is being hidden from her. Elsewhere, Woojin is on a flight back to Korea. He sits quietly, speaking softly to his dog, which is safely tucked inside a carrier. When a curious passenger asks how old the dog is, Woojin immediately hides his face and mutters that he doesn't know. He avoids eye contact and conversation as he dislikes interacting with strangers. Upon landing, Woojin's peculiar habits become more noticeable. He begins measuring everything around him, the walls, the floor, even objects like trash bins. His obsession with precise measurements draws uncomfortable stares from passers-by. At one point, he pushes past two girls just so he can measure another object, causing people nearby to stare at him as if he were unstable. Back at the hospital, Saori experiences another emotional setback. A fellow patient accidentally smears something on her face, making her believe her appearance has been damaged. Panicked, she rushes to the restroom and washes her face repeatedly. Standing alone, she begins to miss her uncle and aunt deeply. This triggers memories from her childhood, memories of losing her parents in a tragic accident, and the moment her uncle promised to always protect her. She recalls how her aunt gifted her a dog to comfort her loneliness and how they cheered proudly whenever she performed with her violin. These memories make her longing even stronger. Meanwhile, a woman named Jennifer enters the story. She is the housekeeper hired by Woo Jin's sister to look after both Woo Jin and Chan. As Woo Jin walks behind her, Jennifer becomes increasingly suspicious, believing she is being followed by a dangerous stranger. Suddenly stopping, she pulls out a green onion from her bag and begins striking Woo Jin repeatedly without hesitation. She is convinced she is defending herself from a psycho. Woo Jin is left stunned, barely able to react. Back at the hospital garden, Saori spots her nurse and greets her, hopping to ask again about her uncle and aunt. However, the nurse panics and runs away, unable to face Saori with the truth. This reaction makes Saori suspicious. Soon after, she overhears two men discussing an upcoming performance at a hospital near her old home. The name of the place shocks her deeply. Meanwhile, Woo Jin, nursing an injured eye from Jennifer's attack, listens to her apologize in an oddly robotic and overly professional tone. He brushes it off and leaves, putting in his earbuds to block out the world. Saori eventually leaves the hospital and makes her way toward her neighborhood. As she walks, she is stunned by how much everything has changed. Buildings are taller, streets are unfamiliar, and even road signs look different. When she notices everyone holding smartphones she has never seen before, she feels as though she has stepped into an entirely different era. Elsewhere, Rose, a high school student and Chan's classmate, is shown waiting nearby. She has a huge crush on Chan and has been trying to contact him repeatedly. Just as Woo Jin arrives, Rose mistakes him for a pervert when she sees him measuring the bench she's sitting on. Furious, she begins attacking him, shouting accusations. Saori witnesses the scene and becomes terrified, muttering that Korea is no longer safe before running away. Kango arrives and desperately tries to stop Rose, explaining that Woo Jin isn't a bad person, just strange. Rose refuses to listen while Woo Jin continues measuring things calmly, unfazed by the chaos. Eventually, he walks away as if nothing happened. Later, Kango scolds Woo Jin for not explaining himself. She reminds him that if he had simply told people he was a set designer, all the misunderstandings could have been avoided. Woo Jin ignores her and continues working silently. Meanwhile, Saori finally reaches her neighborhood. Everything looks unfamiliar except one house, her house. Overjoyed, she rushes to the door and rings the bell. Jennifer answers through an intercom, surprising Saori. After explaining that she is part of the family, Saori is allowed inside. The interior of the house has changed drastically, but when she sees her dog Fang, she bursts into tears of joy. The dog immediately recognizes her and runs to her, confirming she is truly home. Overwhelmed and exhausted, Saori collapses and Jennifer carries her to a bedroom. Elsewhere, Chan enjoys fried chicken with Do and Dong, proudly impressing the restaurant owner with their appetite. When Chan rescues a tiny chick from danger, he declares he will raise it with care, believing it was saved for a reason. When Woo Jin finally returns home, Jennifer informs him that the family member he was expecting is upstairs. Believing it's Chan, Woo Jin goes to the room. Seeing Saori asleep, he tries to wake her. When she doesn't respond, he attempts his usual method, leaning in to kiss her. At that exact moment, Chan enters and turns on the lights. Saori wakes in terror, recognizes Woo Jin as the man attacked earlier, and violently twists his face while screaming. Chaos erupts as everyone demands answers, unsure who Saori is or why she claims the house as her own. And with that confusion, all their lives collide. All of Saori's confusion is finally addressed, but the truth turns out to be far more painful than she imagined. She learns that the house she believed belonged to her family is not hers at all. It actually belongs to Woo Jin. His father purchased the property many years ago, long after Saori had disappeared from the world. The realization hits her hard, leaving her standing silently as the reality sinks in. She then asks the question that matters most to her, how her dog ended up there. Woo Jin explains calmly that when the previous residents, her uncle and aunt, left the house in a rush, they abandoned many of their belongings, including the dog. As for where her uncle and aunt went afterward, no one seems to know. There was no forwarding address, no contact information, nothing that could trace their whereabouts. Hearing this, Saori feels as though the ground beneath her feet has vanished. Everything she once relied on has disappeared. Chan watches her quietly, his heart aching for her situation. Feeling sympathy, he gently suggests that she go to the police station to search for answers. Saori listens but doesn't respond. She appears numb, overwhelmed by the endless stream of losses. Woo Jin then stands up and firmly asks her to leave the house. He also requests that she return his dog. With trembling hands and eyes filled with unshed tears, Saori reluctantly hands the dog back. Chan notices her expression and feels even more uneasy, sensing that she is far more fragile than she lets on. Saori's search continues as she visits the building where her uncle once worked. She expects familiarity, maybe even a hint of comfort. Instead, an elderly man tells her that no businesses operate there anymore. The entire building has been transformed into a supermarket. He explains that the whole neighborhood was redeveloped long ago. Street names were changed, buildings were demolished, and the people who once lived there all moved away. The place she knew no longer exists. The shock deepens her despair. Remembering Chan's earlier suggestion, Saori forces herself to go to the police station. She explains everything, desperately asking them to help her find her uncle and aunt. However, without identification, no official documents, and no proof of her identity, the police are unable to assist her. When she insists that she is still 17 years old, their expressions change. They begin to see her as unstable. Convinced that she is mentally confused, they refuse to take her seriously. Completely exhausted, Saori leaves the station feeling smaller than ever. As she walks aimlessly, she notices a familiar location. It should have been the house where her best friend Sumi and Tai Hyun once lived. Instead, towering buildings stand in its place. Nothing remains. The sight crushes her spirit. She whispers to herself, wondering what happened to her life and why everyone she loved seems to have vanished. Looking into a mirror, she studies her unfamiliar face and quietly wishes that this nightmare would end, that she could wake up as her 17-year-old self again. Meanwhile, Chan is enjoying dinner with his two friends when Woo Jin arrives. Chan enthusiastically introduces them, proudly calling them his closest companions. Woo Jin greets Dong politely but mistakes Do for Chan's coach due to his appearance. This causes laughter at the table. Do loudly protests, insisting that he is only a friend. Chan backs him up, joking that Do only looks older despite being the same age. Woo Jin tells them to enjoy their meal and quietly leaves. After Woo Jin departs, Chan's friends express curiosity and concern about his uncle's strange behavior. Chan explains that Woo Jin is a set designer and once lived a much livelier life. He admits that something changed him deeply and silently wishes that his uncle could find happiness again. Elsewhere, Saori encounters yet another frightening experience. A drunk man grabs her wrist and tries to pull her away. She struggles free and runs in terror. Soon after, she notices another man following her, something concealed under his jacket. Fear takes over her mind and she assumes the worst. When the man pulls the object out, she screams and flees, only to later realize he meant no harm. Even so, the incident leaves her shaken. That night, Woo Jin's dog suddenly begins barking uncontrollably. Woo Jin tries to calm him, but the dog refuses to respond. Chan arrives, puzzled by the noise, just as Jennifer appears unexpectedly, startling both of them. She explains in her serious tone that dogs often behave this way when someone important is missing or in danger. Woo Jin dismisses the idea, believing the dog's age is to blame. Still, he sits beside the dog, gently comforting him, showing how deeply attached he truly is. Saori, meanwhile, collapses on a playground slide, sobbing uncontrollably. She remembers a time when her mother was still alive. Her mother had encouraged her before a violin performance, telling her that fear can only be overcome by facing it. Those words once gave her strength, but now she feels utterly alone. Rain begins to fall heavily, soaking the empty playground. The next morning, Saori wakes stiff and sore. Her body weakened from years of immobility. She struggles to stand and ends up slipping in the mud, further humiliating herself. At the same time, Jennifer encounters Woo Jin, now transformed by a haircut. She barely recognizes him. Before he leaves, she asks about a locked storage room in the garden. Woo Jin firmly forbids her from opening it, making his refusal sound final and absolute. Woo Jin takes his dog to the veterinarian, worried about its condition. The doctor suggests treatment, and Woo Jin reluctantly leaves the dog behind. Outside, he encounters a man who recognizes him from abroad and remarks on his improved appearance. Woojin doesn't respond and walks away, leaving unanswered questions behind. Hungry and desperate, Saori watches others eat, imagining the taste of food. A woman mistakes her for someone in need and offers her food meant for the poor. Saori hesitates but eventually joins the line. After waiting patiently, she discovers the food is gone. A man ahead of her has taken the last portion. Fighting tears, she accepts a small chocolate pie instead. It feels like a treasure. She cleans her face in a restroom and sits on a bench to eat it. When a signboard falls, she instinctively sets the snack down to fix it, her mind still thinking like a teenager. Woo Jin appears nearby and begins measuring the bench, unknowingly sitting on the chocolate pie. When Saori returns, her treat is gone. She asks Woo Jin if he has seen it. He denies it. When he stands up, the ruined snack falls out, revealing the truth. Saori is devastated. Woo Jin offers to compensate her, but she only asks for another one. As they walk together, people laugh at him for the stain on his pants. Saori, feeling protective, makes him wear her sweater to cover it, insisting he looks fine. As they continue walking, Saori notices a woman drop something important and rushes to return it, despite Woo Jin's attempts to stop her. She finally succeeds but realizes she has wandered too far again, standing lost in a world she no longer understands. And once more she is alone. Chan trains with relentless intensity, his movements sharp and powerful as if energy itself flows endlessly through him. When practice finally ends, the other athletes collapse onto the floor, dragging themselves toward their water bottles in exhaustion. Chan, however, stands tall, barely breaking a sweat, his breathing steady and calm. Watching this, Do nudges Dong and jokes that Chan must have some kind of hidden battery inside his head, because no normal human should still be this energetic after such brutal training. Dong laughs and agrees, convinced that something about Chan simply defies logic. After leaving the training hall, the three friends walk together, joking and teasing one another when Rose suddenly rushes toward them. Clearly annoyed, she demands to know why Chan has been ignoring her calls and messages. Chan answers honestly, explaining that he was practicing and doesn't like being glued to his phone anyway. Instead of being offended, Rose smiles brightly and says she feels the same way, proudly pointing out how perfectly their thinking matches. Do and Dong exchange shocked looks, amazed at how effortlessly she twists his words into something romantic. As their conversation continues, Rose learns that Chan's uncle recently returned from overseas. Her eyes light up instantly as she asks playful questions about her future uncle-in-law, insisting that Chan introduce them soon. Chan freezes in place while Do and Dong burst into laughter, clearly enjoying his embarrassment. Trying to change the subject, Chan offers Rose some food, but she refuses, explaining that earlier she saw a strange man who had completely humiliated himself in public, which ruined her appetite. Elsewhere, Woojin is at work, meeting a client who explains that she needs a stage designed to accompany deeply sorrowful music. Woojin listens closely, allowing the emotions of the melody to sink into him. He studies every note, every pause, every emotional shift, translating sound into space. When he finally presents his design, it perfectly mirrors the music's sadness and beauty. The client is stunned by his talent and praises his work without hesitation. On the way out, she attempts to invite him to dinner, but Woojin declines flatly, saying he isn't hungry. She then suggests having a drink together, but he refuses again. As they continue talking, she mentions that they live in the same neighborhood and subtly hints that he could drive her home. Woojin simply responds that he hopes she gets home safely, then gets into his car. Assuming he agreed, the woman moves toward the passenger seat, only to watch him drive away without a second glance. Furious, she fumes in place until Kango steps in, offering to take her out instead and smooth things over. Privately, Kango mutters that Woo Jin's cold personality is going to scare away every client they have. At the same time, a celebrated violinist named Tai finishes a glamorous photo shoot and sits down for an interview. When asked whether anyone has ever matched her skill level, Tai recalls the past. Memories of Saori's performances flood her mind. Back then, Saori had been nearly impossible to defeat, and even when Tai won competitions, the audience still spoke more highly of Saori. Pushing those memories aside, Tai confidently claims that no one has ever truly surpassed her. Meanwhile, Saori sits alone at a bus stop, exhausted, hungry, and drained. Woojin's car passes by with Fang inside, but neither of them notices the other. A nearby poster featuring Tai catches Saori's attention, reminding her of who she once was, a talented violinist full of promise. Suddenly, she remembers her violin, the one her mother gave her, the last remaining piece of her childhood. Realizing it must still be in her old house, she becomes determined to retrieve it no matter what. That night, Chan and his friends order an absurd amount of food. When the doorbell rings, several delivery workers announce themselves at once. As the door opens, Saori quietly slips inside, taking advantage of the chaos. Inside, Chan is busy devouring pizza when he notices her. He asks whether she has found her uncle yet. She shakes her head and asks for just a few minutes to search for her violin, explaining that her uncle and aunt left everything behind. Moved by her desperation, Chan agrees. Just then, Woo Jin is about to come downstairs. Panicking, Chan rushes up and hugs him tightly, saying how much he missed him. Woo Jin responds warmly, kissing Chan on the head like he used to. A noise downstairs draws Woo Jin's attention, but Chan tries to block him. Eventually, they go down together and find Jennifer working. After a brief exchange, everyone heads off again. Chan calls out for Seori, accidentally making Jennifer think he is calling her. When Chan clarifies that he would call her auntie if he meant her, Jennifer stiffens in offense and demands to be called by her name instead. Even Woo Jin struggles to hide his laughter. Later, Rose arrives at the house and recognizes Woo Jin as the same man she attacked earlier. Mortified, she immediately runs away, deciding it would be best not to meet Chan's uncle at all. That night, Woo Jin hears crying echoing through the house. He and Chan arm themselves cautiously and head downstairs, only to be terrified by Jennifer, dressed in white and appearing like a ghost. She explains she heard the sound too and joins them. Fang stands frozen near a bookshelf, staring intensely. Jennifer warns that dogs can sense things humans cannot, which only makes Chan more afraid. Suddenly, a hidden door opens. A hand emerges, followed by a figure crawling out. Woo Jin and Chan scream in terror, clinging to each other, convinced it's a spirit. Jennifer turns on the lights, revealing the truth: it's Seori, collapsing to the floor and begging for food before fainting. Later, Seori eats a full meal Jennifer prepares. Woo Jin and Chan are shocked to learn their house contains a secret room, confirming Seori truly lived there once. Seori apologizes for not recognizing Woo Jin and explains her weakness caused everything. Fang finally eats from her hands, proving his bond with her. Chan declares Fang has found his true owner, which pleases Seori but unsettles Woo Jin. Despite his reluctance, Woo Jin allows Seori to stay the night, persuaded by Chan and Jennifer, knowing it isn't safe for her to leave alone. Chan quietly carries a blanket towards Seori's room, intending to make sure she is warm and comfortable for the night. However, when he peeks inside, the room is empty. A moment later, he notices her outside, sitting alone under the open sky. She gazes upward thoughtfully, her fingers gently tracing invisible shapes in the air. Without realizing it, she is drawing rabbits the same way she used to long ago, a habit born from memories she never truly let go of. At the same time, Woo Jin steps outside while searching for something else. He almost notices Seori's familiar gesture, the rabbits she always used to draw, but Chan's voice interrupts the moment, unintentionally blocking Woo Jin from seeing it. If Woo Jin had witnessed that small, innocent action, he would have instantly known that the feelings he once shared with her had never truly disappeared. Chan joins Seori and asks gently why she is still awake so late. She answers honestly that sleep refuses to come. As the quiet night stretches on, the two begin to talk. Seori opens her heart and explains that her father built this house specifically for her, pouring love into every corner. Every wall, every room carries memories of family, warmth, and happier times. She recalls the day her father proudly showed her the hidden room for the very first time, treating it like a magical secret meant only for the two of them. Those memories remind her of how joyful and secure her life once was, back when her family was whole. Chan asks about her current living situation, wondering aloud whether she stays with her uncle. Seori's expression darkens as she explains that she once lived peacefully with her parents, but everything changed after they passed away in a tragic accident. Afterward, her uncle and aunt moved into the house with her. But now, she has no idea where her uncle is or what became of him. Overcome with emotion, she admits that it feels as if everyone she once relied on has vanished from her life, leaving her utterly alone. Chan notices how deeply her sadness runs, and it troubles him to see her in such pain. The next morning, Seori prepares to leave after retrieving her violin. She thanks Chan repeatedly for everything he has done. Miss Jennifer arrives just in time and thoughtfully packs food for Seori to take with her. Deeply touched, Seori expresses her gratitude again and again. When Chan asks where she plans to go, Seori admits she doesn't know. Her only goal is to find her uncle as soon as possible. As she says goodbye and turns to leave, Chan stops her. He reminds her of what she said the night before, that everyone she loved had disappeared. Then he reassures her that she is no longer alone because now she has him. He tells her that they are friends, and whenever loneliness overwhelms her, she can return to this house. His words warm her heart and she smiles with renewed hope. Just then, unfamiliar people arrive to inspect the house. It becomes clear that Woo Jin's father intends to sell the property, and the buyers plan to tear it down to build something new. Alarmed, Chan questions Woo Jin about what is happening. Saori, panicked, grabs Woojin's hand and asks if he is truly selling her home. Woojin pulls away coldly and tells her to stay out of it, explaining that the decision belongs to his father and cannot be changed. Desperate, Saori insists that if the house must be sold, it should be sold to her. She promises to find her uncle and buy it herself. Woojin ignores her plea and walks away. Saori follows him, unwilling to give up. Suddenly, a bicycle speeds dangerously close to Fun. Without hesitation, Saori rushes forward and saves the dog, putting herself in harm's way. Chan and Woojin are horrified when they see her fall, appearing badly injured and covered in red. Chan panics and Woojin immediately calls for medical help, only for Saori to reveal that it isn't blood at all but juice that's spilled on her clothes. Relieved, they both exhale deeply. Even so, Saori has minor injuries and ruined clothes, so Chan insists she return to the house to rest. Elsewhere, Tae-hyun arrives to visit Saori, only to learn she is no longer where she was supposed to be. When he hears that she has left to search for her family, he is shocked and rushes out to find her. Back at the house, Chan pleads with Woojin to let Saori stay temporarily since she has nowhere else to go. Woojin refuses, stating that while he can repay her for saving Fun, he will not allow a stranger to live in his home. Saori personally begs him to reconsider, but he remains unmoved. This angers Chan deeply. In frustration, Chan hands Fun to Saori, declaring that she is the dog's rightful owner since Fun was originally found at her house. Woojin begins shouting but is interrupted by a call from the property dealer ready to finalize the sale. At that moment, Miss Jennifer asks about a sweater, and Saori claims it belongs to her. Woojin suddenly remembers how Saori once protected his dignity, and after a moment of reflection, he tells the dealer to delay the sale for 1 month. He then grants Saori permission to stay in the house for that month. Overjoyed, both Saori and Chan are filled with relief. Later, Tae-hyun arrives outside the house, convinced Saori has returned there. When the doorbell rings, Saori moves to answer, but Chan stops her and opens the door himself, finding his friends instead. When Tae-hyun questions them about a woman matching Saori's description, they explain she had been there but left earlier. Tae-hyun leaves behind his card, asking to be contacted if she returns. Afterward, Chan's friends accidentally lose the card while distracted by ice cream. When they later discover Saori is actually still in the house, everyone is shocked. Chan believes the visitor must have been Saori's uncle until they realize the card is gone. Saori then asks to use the internet, surprising everyone with her unfamiliarity with technology. When she searches for her uncle's company, she learns it shut down long ago. Woojin returns home later, worried about living with a stranger, only to find Saori has already taken care of Fun. Meanwhile, Chan grows increasingly suspicious about Saori's past hospitalization, sensing there is more to her story than she has revealed. Elsewhere, Rose attempts to disguise herself so Woojin won't recognize her while Saori visits a repair shop to fix her violin. When she learns the cost is far beyond what she can afford, she leaves heartbroken. Lost in thought and exhaustion, Saori later lies down in Woojin's room before remembering that it is no longer hers. Saori sits down with Chan's laptop and begins working seriously on a resume for the first time in her life. Her goal is simple but important to her. She wants to apply for a position at a music-focused school as a violin instructor. As she types, Chan leans over to take a look and he immediately notices how bare the document looks. There are very few entries, almost no experience listed, and not much to fill the page. Chan scratches his head and asks her an important question. Since resumes usually require contact information, he wonders whose phone number she plans to include. Saori hesitates, then admits she doesn't even own a mobile phone. Without thinking too much, Chan offers his own number and tells her to use it instead. He casually adds that his phone is often turned off during training sessions as he doesn't like distractions. At that moment, Miss Jennifer walks over and hands Saori her phone number as well, telling her to use it if she needs a more reliable contact. She then leaves them alone so Saori can continue filling out the resume. When Chan sees Saori writing down the number, he jokingly asks what comes after the first few digits, only to be stunned when Saori writes the entire number flawlessly from memory without hesitation. Completely impressed, Chan blurts out that she must be incredibly smart. As they continue chatting, Chan casually mentions that Woojin once lived in Germany. This catches Saori completely off guard. Her eyes light up with excitement because she too spent a significant part of her life there. Without wasting a second, she rushes over to Woojin and begins asking him enthusiastic questions. She asks whether he really lived in Germany, what it was like, and whether he remembers certain places, explaining that she traveled there often for violin auditions. However, Woojin has no interest in entertaining the conversation. Irritated, he suddenly snaps at her, asking if she is incapable of understanding that he does not want to talk. He harshly points out that although she is close to his age, her behavior resembles that of a teenager. He makes it clear that allowing her to stay in the house was simply repayment for saving fun, not an invitation to act as if the place belongs to her. Saori is left stunned and speechless by his words. Chan overhears everything from a distance and watches as Woojin walks away. Concerned, Chan approaches Saori and tries to comfort her, explaining that Woojin isn't good at expressing himself and that he wasn't always so cold. Saori shakes her head and softly says that the blame is hers. She admits she became overly excited when she heard about Germany and didn't think before speaking. With that, she walks away, visibly hurt. Later, Miss Jennifer is busy cooking in her own eccentric but enthusiastic style. When Saori tells her that she plans to go out for job interviews at schools, Miss Jennifer immediately stops her and insists that appearance matters for interviews. She opens her wardrobe and encourages Saori to choose any outfit she likes. Saori is thrilled by the offer until she realizes that every dress looks almost exactly the same. Still, she selects one, changes, and heads out with determination. Unfortunately, reality is harsh. One interview after another ends in rejection. Because Saori never completed her higher education due to her long coma, her academic qualifications stop at high school. Her violin experience, though once extraordinary, is outdated. Everywhere she goes, the result is the same. At one school, she is briefly asked to interact with a group of children who are struggling to play the violin properly. Saori gently encourages them by asking them to imagine drawing rabbits with their fingers, turning the lesson into something playful. The children respond immediately and the music improves. She is finally called into an interview room, but once the panel reviews her resume, she is again dismissed. Desperate, Saori asks for just one chance. She picks up the violin and begins to play. Her music is beautiful, emotional, and skilled enough to surprise even the interviewer. But halfway through, her weakness catches up to her. Her bow slips from her hand. The interviewer gently asks whether she has been away from the violin for a long time. Saori admits that she has, but insists she still understands it deeply. She resumes playing, yet the decision remains unchanged. She is politely asked to leave. Heartbroken, Saori sits outside and whispers to herself that she hasn't played the violin in 13 years and that she simply needs time and practice. She looks at her hands and reassures herself that things will eventually get better. Elsewhere, Tai Hyun is consumed by worry. He admits to another doctor that he has no idea where Saori is or what condition she might be in. When he hears about an unconscious woman found on the street, he panics and rushes to see her, only to realize it is Saori. His fear only grows stronger. Meanwhile, Woojin attends a meeting where a famous violinist named Tai appears and introduces herself as the music director for an upcoming concert. Woojin listens quietly. At the same time, Saori wanders into a restaurant looking for work. When asked her age, she almost says 17 out of habit but corrects herself to 30. Even then, she is rejected, as the restaurant only hires workers in their 20s. Woojin overhears the exchange from behind, having attended his meeting at the same place. Saori steps outside, crushed. She watches a pair of cheerful schoolgirls laughing together and remembers how happy she once was at that age. She imagines the life she should have lived, studying violin in Germany, performing solo concerts, becoming a respected musician with her uncle and aunt cheering her on. That future now feels impossibly distant. Chan notices her sadness and approaches her. When she explains everything, he tells her that the people who rejected her simply don't recognize true talent. Saori finally opens up and reveals the truth. She was in a coma for 13 years after an accident. Though her body aged, her mind never moved past 17. Chan is completely shaken by the revelation. The next day, Saori offers to deliver lunch to Woojin at his workplace. When she arrives, the office is empty but his phone rings. She answers it and ends up speaking with Tai. Their conversation flows effortlessly, bonded by their shared love of the violin. Tai is deeply impressed, though she forgets to ask Saori's name. Later, Chan realizes he has begun searching for Saori without meaning to. The following morning, Saori invites Woojin to breakfast and shows him how to open a rooftop window using a technique her father once taught her. Woojin is stunned. They stand together, sharing the view, and for the first time, he genuinely enjoys her presence. As Saori closes the window, she slips and falls into Woojin's arms. Their faces are inches apart, emotions unfamiliar but intense, until the moment is broken by the plunger falling onto Saori's head. Embarrassed, she runs away. That night, Woojin hears crying and rushes downstairs with Chan. Miss Jennifer appears suddenly, frightening them both before Saori emerges surrounded by onions. She had taken a job peeling onions after failing to find work. Everyone gathers around her, concerned. Chan takes her outside for fresh air while Saori quietly draws rabbits in the moonlight once again, a habit passed down from her mother. Chan watches her fondly before leaving her to the night. The following morning, Deok-soo and Dong arrive at Chan's house to call him for school as usual. As soon as they step inside, they are met with the overwhelming sight of onions everywhere. Without hesitation, all three boys sit down to help Saori, putting on face masks to protect themselves. Even with the masks on, their eyes begin to sting badly and they struggle to keep them open. Saori feels guilty and repeatedly tells them to stop and leave her alone, but none of them are willing to abandon her. Curious, Deok-soo and Dong finally ask why she is putting herself through such hardship. Saori explains honestly that she is doing all this to earn money so she can fix her broken violin. Hearing this, Dong casually mentions that his family is extremely wealthy and offers to buy her a brand new violin instead. Before Saori can respond, Miss Jennifer steps in and explains that Saori's violin is not an ordinary instrument. It is a handcrafted violin made in Germany, extremely rare and precious. Repairing it would cost around $2,000. Dong freezes for a moment after hearing the amount. Then without complaint he sighs and says that in that case he will just keep peeling onions with everyone else. At that moment Woo-jin enters the house and is greeted by the strange scene. Seeing this as an opportunity, Deok-soo immediately starts pleading with Woo-jin to drive all of them to school because they are already running late. Although clearly unwilling, Woo-jin eventually agrees and takes Chan and his friends to school. Later that day, while attending a client meeting, Woo-jin notices Saori entering a bar across the street. This instantly raises suspicion in his mind. He begins to believe that she might be willing to do anything for money. Concerned and irritated, he abruptly leaves the meeting and walks into the bar to look for her. Inside, he asks the intimidating bodyguards if a girl recently entered. They respond coldly, claiming no such person came in and telling him to leave. Woo-jin refuses to back down and begins calling out Saori's name loudly. The guards warn him that if he continues, he will be beaten. Frightened, Woo-jin apologizes and takes a step back, but moments later he starts shouting her name again, desperately asking her to come out. Enraged, the bodyguards grab him and drag him outside. At that exact moment, Saori appears and immediately understands the situation. She assumes Woo-jin must have misunderstood something again and rushed in without thinking. Without hesitation, she runs toward him, positions herself in front of him protectively and warns the guards not to touch him. Surprised by her boldness, the guards back off and leave. Woo-jin, confused and irritated, asks why she is there and what strange makeup she is wearing on her face. Saori explains that there is a sock factory operating inside the bar and that she came looking for work. She then cheerfully explains that the makeup is fruit-themed and is meant to make her look younger. Woo-jin listens in disbelief, unable to understand how someone could be so naive. Back at home, Saori excitedly replays the incident in her mind. She remembers Woo-jin shouting her name loudly and coming to rescue her. Thinking about it makes her blush and smile uncontrollably. At the same time, Woo-jin finds himself thinking about her as well, about how she saved him again, how kind and unexpectedly brave she is. Despite himself, he feels warmth creeping into his heart. Soon after, Rose comes to visit Chan. When she sees Saori in the house, she immediately asks who the girl is. Everyone explains Saori's situation and they all start helping her with her socks. However, Rose feels uneasy about the entire situation. Deok-soo notices Saori blinking repeatedly and misinterprets it as flirting. He excitedly tells Dong that she must be attracted to him because of his looks. When Chan asks Saori about it, she explains that something simply got into her eye, clearing up the misunderstanding. Chan tries to check Saori's eye again, but Rose, attempting to intervene, accidentally spills juice all over Saori's clothes. Chan instinctively moves to help clean it up, but Rose stops him and insists on doing it herself. She clearly doesn't like Chan getting close to another girl. When Saori comes out of the bathroom, Chan suggests lending her his clothes since she doesn't have any spare ones. Rose immediately refuses and declares that she cannot share Chan with anyone, not even his clothes. However, when Woo-jin suddenly appears, Rose panics, hides her face, and runs away. Because of this, Woo-jin fails to recognize her as the same girl who once attacked him on the street. After escaping, Rose scolds herself for her behavior. The following day, Rose brings a large collection of clothes for Saori, claiming they will help improve her image around Chan. Saori initially refuses, feeling uncomfortable, but Rose insists so strongly that Saori eventually accepts them. Later, Miss Jennifer injures herself during judo practice and asks Saori to work at her second workplace instead. Saori diligently cleans the house and notices photos that reveal the place belongs to Tai Hyun. While cleaning, she finds a certificate bearing his name and quietly wonders how he is doing now, admitting to herself that she misses him deeply. After finishing her work, Saori leaves, only to realize she forgot the money envelope Miss Jennifer asked her to bring. She returns quickly, unaware that Tai Hyen has come home and fallen asleep. Hearing a noise, Tai Hyen wakes up and steps out, but Saori has already left. Seeing the slippers by the door, he remembers how Saori always wore the wrong shoes and laughed whenever he scolded her. He recalls how she treated his marriage proposal like a joke. Overcome with emotion, he resolves to find her no matter what. Meanwhile, Saori stops on a bridge on her way home, smiling to herself. From below, Woo Jin notices her. Before he can call out to her, she begins forming rabbit shapes with her fingers exactly the way she used to long ago. This sight hits Woo Jin like a shock. Memories flood back violently and his condition worsens. He immediately visits his doctor, and through flashbacks, it is revealed that Woo Jin has been haunted by guilt since he was 17, believing he caused Saori's accident. Though he recovered slowly over the years, seeing someone who reminds him of the past reopens old wounds. He tells the doctor about the girl who brings back those memories. The doctor advises him to stay away from anyone connected to his trauma. Back at work, Woo Jin's colleagues receive a call from Tin asking for the same staff member she spoke to earlier. Confused, they review CCTV footage and soon discover the truth. When Woo Jin arrives at work, he is stunned to see Saori there. Kango explains that Saori has been hired because of her strong musical instincts. Everyone welcomes her warmly, except Woo Jin, who begins ignoring her completely. He avoids eye contact, refuses to answer her questions, and treats her as if she doesn't exist. Saori is deeply confused and hurt. After work, she asks him directly why he is treating her this way, but he walks away without responding. The next day, everyone attends Tin's violin performance. Watching Tin play, Saori breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by grief for the dream she lost. Woo Jin notices her crying and feels pain in his chest. After the performance, Tin meets Saori and initially gets along with her well. But upon learning her name, Tin becomes visibly shaken and leaves abruptly. Later, she remembers a girl named Saori from her past, a girl everyone praised, a girl people believed deserved first place. Tin recalls overhearing classmates say she only won because of her wealthy mother. Fueled by anger and resentment, Tin remembers her mother telling her that power can change anything. In the present, Tin coldly mutters that she hates girls named Saori. Saori eventually returns home and resumes the exhausting routine she has been forced to endure. Once again, she is surrounded by the strong sting of onions, their sharp scent filling the air and irritating her eyes. At first, she tries to endure it silently, but as she continues, her thoughts drift toward the life she once dreamed of, the life she may never reclaim. Memories of her violin career, her passion for music, and the future she once imagined slowly overwhelm her. Unable to hold back anymore, Saori collapses emotionally, her tears falling freely as she cries alone, mourning everything she has lost. At the same time, Woo Jin finds himself unable to sleep. The image of Saori crying during the concert keeps replaying in his mind, refusing to let him rest. Her pain lingers with him far more than he expects, and the emotions he thought he had buried long ago begin to surface again. As he lies awake, he questions himself honestly for the first time. He wonders whether it is truly possible for him to forget Saori or pretend that she no longer matters. He admits to himself that ignoring her feelings is becoming increasingly difficult, and a frightening realization creeps into his thoughts. Perhaps he is beginning to care for her more deeply than he intended. Lost in these thoughts, Woo Jin eventually comes downstairs and is shocked to see Saori crying uncontrollably. The sight of her pain breaks through his emotional restraint. Acting purely on instinct, he walks straight toward her, gently takes her face in his hands and carefully wipes away her tears. His intention is to protect his eyes from her onion-covered hands, but in the chaos of the moment, he accidentally rubs his own eyes instead. The burning sensation from the chili peppers hits him immediately. At the same time, Saori also ends up getting chilly in her eyes, and soon both of them are crying out loudly, overwhelmed by the intense stinging pain. Despite the discomfort, Woo Jin doesn't hesitate. He grabs Saori's hand and rushes her to the bathroom so they can wash their faces. After repeatedly rinsing their eyes, the pain gradually fades. Once the situation settles, they look at each other red-eyed, disheveled, and exhausted, and suddenly burst into laughter. The ridiculousness of what just happened breaks the tension between them, allowing them to share a rare, genuine moment of warmth and connection. The following day, Chan is seen practicing intensely, his focus sharper than ever. During his training, he makes a firm promise to himself. If he manages to win the upcoming boat race, he will finally gather the courage to confess his feelings to Saori and tell her just how much she means to him. This goal fuels his determination as he pushes himself harder than before. Meanwhile, Woo Jin arrives at work looking noticeably different. His expression is lighter, and for once he appears genuinely happy. His friends are immediately taken aback by the sudden shift in his behavior. They whisper among themselves, shocked to see him smiling when he used to look emotionally distant and withdrawn. They can't help but wonder what or who could be responsible for such a dramatic change. Elsewhere, Tae-hyun arrives at Kor's hospital with lingering questions in his mind. A nurse informs him that Seori's hospital bills were paid by someone else in the past. However, no one knows who this mysterious person was. The only certainty is that it was not a member of Seori's family. This revelation leaves Tae-hyun deeply unsettled. He begins to suspect that someone has been quietly watching over Seori from the shadows, and the mystery only strengthens his determination to uncover the truth. Later, Woo Jin and Seori step out together under the excuse of a meeting. In reality, they are simply enjoying each other's company, walking side by side and sharing an unspoken sense of comfort. Their time together feels peaceful, almost normal, something Seori hasn't experienced in a long while. At the same time, Tae-hyun appears outside Woo Jin's house once again, hoping to confirm whether Seori has returned. Chan happens to be there and remembers Seori's clear wish not to go back to the hospital. Wanting to protect her decision, he lies and tells Tae-hyun that Seori hasn't returned. Hearing this only deepens Tae-hyun's frustration and concern. While out with Woo Jin, Seori notices a young girl playing the violin. Drawn by the familiar sound, she picks up the instrument herself. For a brief moment, it feels like the past is reaching out to her. But suddenly the bow slips from her hand. The shock of it freezes her in place. In that instant, Seori realizes the devastating possibility that she may never be able to play the violin again. The truth hits her hard, and Woo Jin, watching her struggle, feels his heart sink as well. Seeing how deeply affected she is, Woo Jin gently asks Seori to get into the car. He drives her to a quiet, secluded place where they can talk without interruption. There, Seori finally reveals the truth she has kept hidden for so long. She tells Woo Jin that she had been in a coma for many years. When she finally woke up, she discovered that she had lost over a decade of her life, waking up as an adult when she had gone to sleep as a teenager. Woo Jin is completely stunned by this revelation. He had no idea that Seori had endured such unimaginable hardship, and the weight of her suffering fills him with guilt and sympathy. As night falls, the atmosphere at home shifts to something lighter. Everyone gathers together, sharing watermelon and laughter. For a brief moment, worries fade away and happiness fills the room. They take photos together, wanting to preserve the memory of this rare, joyful night. However, the peace doesn't last. Late at night, Chan wakes up and notices that Woo Jin is not in his room. Alarmed, he informs everyone. Panic spreads quickly, especially for Seori, who is deeply worried about where Woo Jin could have gone at such a late hour. The next morning, Seori walks down the road angrily, her thoughts racing. She feels hurt and abandoned, wondering why Woo Jin left without saying anything. As she vents her frustration to herself, Woo Jin suddenly calls out to her from behind. She ignores him, still furious. Desperate to stop her, Woo Jin shouts that he is not selling the house. Hearing this, Seori freezes. She turns around and rushes toward him, asking if what he said is true. When Woo Jin confirms that he has already spoken to his father, Seori is overwhelmed with emotion. She hugs him tightly, thanking him for everything he has done for her, knowing he made this sacrifice solely for her sake. A flashback reveals how Woo Jin met with his father and persuaded him not to sell the house. Because his father is a wealthy businessman, he agrees without much resistance. Woo Jin feels immense relief and happiness knowing that the home will remain intact. Later, as Woo Jin and Seori spend time together again, the emotional distance between them disappears. Sharing their thoughts openly, Woo Jin finally confesses his feelings, telling Seori how deeply he likes her. Seori responds honestly, admitting that she feels the same. Overjoyed, Woo Jin kisses her, marking the beginning of their relationship. Not long after, Turin visits Seori in person after realizing she is the same student from her music class who had been in a coma for so long. She apologizes sincerely, admitting that she had been jealous of Seori and had once wished she would disappear. Though shocked, Seori forgives her, explaining that jealousy is natural and often comes from admiration. Touched by her words, Turin feels relieved and the two finally reconcile. The next day, Chan's long-awaited boat race takes place. Friends and loved ones gather to support him. Although he starts strong, he eventually falls behind. Remembering his promise to himself, Chan pushes forward with everything he has left and wins the race. Everyone cheers for him, celebrating his victory. Later, Seori congratulates Chan and he asks her to meet him at the park that evening. When they meet, Chan proudly shows her his new scooter and tells her he finally got his license. Excited, they ride together, but the scooter malfunctions, causing them to crash into a restricted area. The police intervene and Woo Jin later arrives to scold Chan. Seori steps in, defending him. Because of Chan's injury, he is taken to the hospital where surgery is recommended. There a doctor recognizes Saori and informs Tae-hyun. Tae-hyun rushes to the hospital, calls out to Saori and embraces her emotionally, relieved to have finally found her. Chan reacts defensively and Woo Jin soon arrives. Tae-hyun explains that he is Saori's old friend. Though surprised, Saori eventually speaks with him alone. Tae-hyun explains his journey and career change. When Saori asks about her aunt and Sumi, Tae-hyun hesitates, remembering painful memories, and admits that he has lost contact with them. Hearing this, Saori's sadness deepens once more. Not long afterward, Tae-hyun visits Woo Jin to express his gratitude for everything he has done for Saori. His tone is polite, but beneath it lies concern and urgency. Once his thanks are said, Tae-hyun gently asks Saori to return home with him. However, Saori refuses without hesitation. She explains that she wants to stay where she is with the people she now considers her family. Tae-hyun is caught off guard by her response. After a moment of silence, he nods slowly and tells her that he understands, or at least that he will try to. He admits that reality is something she will need time to accept, especially after everything she has been through. Tae-hyun then brings up an important issue. Because Saori left the hospital before completing her treatment, her physical condition remains unstable. He urges her to return to the hospital so she can receive proper care and regain her strength. As he speaks, it becomes clear that his concern for her well-being is genuine and deeply rooted. When he reaches the hospital counter, Tae-hyun begins filling out Saori's paperwork, listing himself as her family member in order to complete the process. Before he can finish, Woo Jin arrives and calmly takes the form from Tae-hyun's hands. Without hesitation, Woo Jin completes the paperwork himself. When the nurse looks up and asks who he is to the patient, Woo Jin answers simply and firmly that he is Saori's boyfriend. The word hangs heavily in the air. Tae-hyun is stunned into silence, completely unprepared for that revelation. Once they step away from the counter, Tae-hyun pulls Woo Jin aside. His emotions finally spill over. He explains that he has waited for Saori for most of his life, that he cannot simply step aside now. He confesses that his feelings for her began in childhood and that becoming a doctor was not just a career choice but a promise he made to himself, a way to one day stand beside her and protect her. Woo Jin listens quietly before responding. He acknowledges Tae-hyun's feelings and admits that he understands his pain. But he also states the truth plainly: Saori has chosen him. It is not a one-sided matter. Hearing this, Tae-hyun finds himself unable to argue further. Later, Tae-hyun notices Saori laughing with Woo Jin's family. The warmth in her smile and the comfort she shares with them makes something inside him ache. He realizes how happy she truly is in that environment. Overwhelmed, he quietly prepares to leave. Before he can go far, Saori notices him and runs after him. They sit together and Saori speaks honestly through tears. She explains that everything around her still feels unfamiliar and overwhelming, and that she needs time before she can fully reconnect with him as a friend. She admits that she knows her indecision is hurting him and begs for his forgiveness. Though shocked, Tae-hyun accepts her words. He reminds himself that her happiness matters more than his own pain, especially after all she has endured since waking from her coma. The following morning, Tae-hyun's colleague visits Saori and shares something deeply painful. He reveals how worried Tae-hyun has always been about her, especially after already losing one friend in the accident. Tae-hyun feared losing Saori too and carried that fear in silence. Hearing this revelation devastates Saori. Overcome with emotion, she confronts Tae-hyun, demanding to know why he hid the truth from her, why he never told her that Sumi had died. The grief she has suppressed finally erupts and she cries uncontrollably for her lost friend. Tae-hyun tries to comfort her, but he is called away urgently to perform surgery, leaving Saori alone with her pain. Later, Saori visits Sumi's memorial with Woo Jin. Standing before Sumi's photograph, Saori completely breaks down, calling her friend's name again and again as tears stream down her face. Woo Jin studies the photo carefully and notices something that shakes him to his core. The image shows Sumi wearing Saori's school uniform, the same uniform Saori used to wear. In that moment, the truth finally becomes clear to him. The girl he believed he had lost was never Sumi. It was Saori. Sumi had died wearing Saori's clothes, leading everyone to believe Saori was the one who perished in the accident. Overcome with emotion, Woo Jin embraces Saori tightly, thanking her for surviving and apologizing through tears for believing she was gone. But as the realization settles, guilt crushes him. Though Saori lived, her life was taken from her in another way, years lost to unconsciousness, separated from everyone she loved. Feeling unworthy of standing beside her, Woo Jin quietly leaves her at the memorial and walks away alone. Elsewhere, Chan reflects on how empty Saori's room felt when he couldn't find her earlier. A nurse approaches him asking about Saori's family so paperwork can be signed. Chan steps forward confidently, offering to sign himself. But the nurse explains that the signature must come from Seori's boyfriend, Woo Jin. The words leave Chan completely shaken. He struggles to believe it must be a misunderstanding. Determined to confront Woo Jin, Chan tries to leave but doctors stop him due to his condition. Even so, Chan refuses to stay put. With help from his friends, he manages to escape the hospital, desperate for answers. Back at home, Miss Jennifer comforts Seori after learning everything. Woo Jin retreats into his room, consumed by guilt, and breaks down alone. When Chan finally returns home, he searches for Woo Jin and finds him in the storage room, surrounded by memories from his past. Seeing Woo Jin crying, Chan hugs him, asking what's wrong. Woo Jin remains silent. Later, sitting together, Chan recalls the day Woo Jin left for Germany after losing the woman he loved. Chan admits that he feels the same fear now, afraid that Woo Jin will leave him again. In a moment of desperation, Chan demands a promise that Woo Jin will never abandon him and tears up Woo Jin's passport. When Seori wakes later, she finds Miss Jennifer by her side, having stayed with her the entire time. Feeling calmer, Seori wanders into the storage room and hears a phone ringing. There, she discovers a painting, one that shocks her completely. It is a portrait of herself from long ago. Realizing this, she understands that Woo Jin must have known her before the accident. As the truth unfolds, Miss Jennifer remembers the accident that took her husband, the same tragedy that claimed Sumi's life. Everything connects. When Seori later sees an old photo of Woo Jin, she realizes that he is the same boy from her past. Panic sets in when she learns that Woo Jin's passport has expired and that he has already left. Unbeknownst to them, Woo Jin boards a flight back to Germany, convinced that he has no right to stay with Seori. Seori and Chan rush toward the airport, desperate to stop him. But at home, Miss Jennifer finds a letter Woo Jin left behind. She calls Chan, urging him to return because it is already too late. Chan ends the call and tells Seori the truth: the plane has already departed. Hearing this, Seori's heart sinks and she is left standing in silence, devastated by the realization that Woo Jin may truly be gone. Seori returned home that day with her heart still heavy from the flood of events that had shaken her so profoundly. As she reached her room, she noticed a letter lying quietly on the floor outside her door. Its envelope looked familiar, the handwriting unmistakable. Trembling slightly, she picked it up and locked herself inside, cradling it in her hands as though it were a fragile treasure. Slowly, she broke the seal and unfolded the paper, eyes scanning the words Woo Jin had painstakingly written, each line weighted with the gravity of his emotions and the confession of years of silent suffering. The letter began with memories she had long buried, going back more than a decade to the very first moment Woo Jin saw her. He wrote about how their paths had crossed countless times simply because they had grown up in the same neighborhood. Every day he noticed her laughter, her hurried steps to school, the small ways she greeted neighbors. He described with surprising clarity how he had fallen quietly in love with her from the very beginning, how she became his first true affection, the girl whose presence brightened his every day. But then came the painful twist. He had initially believed he knew her name, only to discover later that he had been mistaken. The girl he had admired and quietly adored had been Sumi, her best friend, not Seori herself. Woo Jin's words conveyed the depth of his nervousness when he first spoke to Seori on the bus. He had wanted to give her a painting he had made, a token of the feelings he could not yet speak aloud. He had asked her to wait for him at the next stop, a simple act that he now realized had altered the course of her life forever. As he recounted that day, he described the fear and hesitation that had caused him to step away when Sumi appeared, leaving Seori to face a tragic accident that sent her into a coma. The weight of his guilt pressed down with every word. "If I had not told you to wait at the next stop, your life would have been different," he wrote. "You would have been happy with your family. Because of me, your life was changed in ways I can never undo. I have no right to be with you, so I am leaving. Please, if you can, forgive me." As Seori read, tears cascaded down her cheeks, blurring the words on the paper. The grief, anger, and relief collided within her. She stood, clutching the letter to her chest, and walked toward the bridge she had always loved as a child. The wooden planks beneath her feet creaked softly as she settled on the edge, legs dangling over the side, staring down at the water that had reflected her youthful dreams so many years ago. She whispered aloud to herself, voice trembling, "Why does this always happen to me? Why does every time I care for someone do they end up leaving?" Her heart felt raw with the sting of abandonment, of lost years, of opportunities stolen by circumstances beyond her control. She remembered Woo Jin's promise, the vow that he would never leave her, and her voice rose in anguish. "But you promised me, Woo Jin, how can you leave me now?" Then, in a moment that seemed both impossible and miraculous, she looked up. There, standing on the bridge, was Woo Jin himself. His gaze was steady, filled with the intensity of all the emotions he had withheld for so long. "I came back," he said simply, but every word carried the weight of his torment and love. I came back because I could not bear the thought of you hating me. I know I ruined your life, but I cannot stay away from you, not even if I wanted to. I could never endure your anger, your resentment. I belong here with you." Shiori's tears fell freely as she embraced him, holding him as though she would never let go. Between sobs, she whispered, "It wasn't your fault. None of this was your doing." And in that instant, years of confusion and sorrow began to untangle themselves. Memories flashed in her mind, the first time she had felt her heart race at the sight of him, the simple joy of watching him play basketball across the park, the thrill of passing by him on her way to school, secretly hopping to catch even a glimpse of his smile. She realized that she had liked him long before she could even name her own feelings. Woo Jin, unknowingly, had always been her first love. Her mind drifted back to the moment at the airport when she had been searching desperately for Chan's mother. In the midst of her concern for another, she had left her precious violin behind, a last memento of her family. Panic had surged through her as she frantically searched for it. Only a kind aunt pointed her toward a boy in a brown school uniform, carrying a painting tube, who had taken the violin to the information desk to ensure it would not be lost. That boy Woo Jin had been there all along, quietly safeguarding a part of her life she did not even realize she had nearly lost. That small act, unnoticed at the time, had planted the earliest seeds of her affection for him. From that day she began coming to the bridge whenever she could, hopping for a glimpse of him, longing to see him even when circumstances prevented any direct encounter. Each sighting quickened her heartbeat. Each smile made her feel alive in ways she hadn't known she could be. Her feelings had grown quietly, invisibly, until now she could name them. He was her first love. Woo Jin listened intently as Shiori recounted the story in her own words, confirming that she too had harbored deep feelings for him all along. "I was the one who liked you first," she admitted, voice soft but resolute. Woo Jin's eyes shimmered with relief and disbelief. He had carried the guilt of her accident for years, blaming himself for what had never been entirely his fault. Hearing her words, a profound sense of release washed over him, lifting the burden he had carried in silence. Finally, all the misunderstandings that had haunted them for so long melted away. In that shared moment of recognition, forgiveness, and enduring affection, they found each other once again. And naturally, Woo Jin leaned in and kissed her, sealing their reunion with the pure joy of mutual love. Later, when they returned home, Chan, unable to contain his excitement, ran to Woo Jin and embraced him warmly. "Welcome back," he said, understanding at last why his uncle had been distant and sorrowful for so many years. He realized that Shiori had been the cause of Woo Jin's long-standing depression, the lost love he had mourned for more than a decade. The truth brought both clarity and a sense of peace. The following day, Chan took Shiori out for a walk. After many tangents and conversations, he finally found the courage to confess his own feelings. "Miss Shiori," he said earnestly, "I've liked you since the very beginning." Shiori, caught off guard, stared at him in shock. Chan continued, "I know you love Uncle Woo Jin and he loves you too, but I couldn't let another day pass without being honest about my feelings. I want no regrets. Even if nothing comes of it, you should know how I feel." Tears welled in Shiori's eyes and she sobbed softly, apologizing for ever unknowingly causing him pain. Chan smiled through his own tears and explained that seeing her happiness, seeing Woo Jin smile again, had been the greatest gift she could ever give him. He wanted nothing more than for them all to remain close, friends bound by affection and understanding, and Shiori agreed. Relief and joy radiated from him, unspoken feelings now at peace. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the man who had caused the bus accident years ago arrived. In his hands he carried years of guilt and the weight of responsibility for the lives he had disrupted. He approached Shiori cautiously, admitting that he had been driving under the influence and that his truck had caused the accident, leaving her in a coma. Overcome with grief and remorse, he had been quietly paying for her medical bills all these years, attempting to make amends for the devastation he had caused. Shiori's initial shock turned into anger and she demanded to know how anyone could be so reckless. She accused him of taking away 13 years of her life, of stealing her family, her friends, her childhood. The man wept openly, begging for her forgiveness. Woo Jin tried to calm her, but before she could respond, Miss Jennifer arrived, fury in her eyes. "Remember the name Kim," she shouted. "He took my husband from me, I will never forgive him." Both Woo Jin and Shiori were stunned to learn of this hidden part of Miss Jennifer's past. Shiori, finding compassion in her heart, embraced her, offering solace. The truck driver, overwhelmed by guilt, surrendered himself to the authorities, finally willing to face the consequences of his actions. Later, Woo Jin and Shiori traveled to her aunt's flower shop. They found it closed but soon discovered that her aunt had been informed of Shiori's return and was on her way. When she arrived, tears flowed freely as she embraced Shiori, apologizing for the years lost and the silence that had kept them apart. Inside, she gave Shiori her uncle's diary, a chronicle of his love, worry, and relentless hope for her recovery during her coma. Reading it, Shiori understood the sacrifices made, the losses endured, and the depth of devotion that had protected her even in her absence. Her uncle's life had been filled with trials, his business ruined, forced to transfer ownership of her house, divorced, and ultimately dying of a heart attack beside her hospital bed. The weight of grief hit Saori anew. She wept at his grave, lamenting that he had silently borne such suffering for her sake. Woojin stayed by her side, offering comfort, and handed her an envelope from her aunt, containing the key to her bank locker with all her rightful money intact. Though her aunt had sold the house and fled, she had left Saori's savings untouched, leaving Saori silent in the presence of both betrayal and protection. After all the revelations, Saori sat quietly, weighed down by sorrow. Woojin approached her gently, determined to lift her spirits and bring a glimmer of peace into her troubled heart. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains as Saori sat quietly in her room, her fingers brushing over her violin case now worn from years of careful handling. Her phone buzzed repeatedly on the desk, and when she glanced at it, she saw a message from Tyan. The text was simple but carried immense weight. He was inviting her to Germany to continue her violin studies, to pursue the path she had dreamt of since childhood. Saori's breath caught. She sank into the chair, the words filling her mind like a storm of possibilities and doubts. Germany meant growth, advancement, mastery of her craft, but it also meant leaving behind the people she had only just begun to rebuild her life with, especially Woojin. She sought him out immediately, finding him in the living room, staring absent-mindedly out the window, lost in his own thoughts. Tyan wants me to go to Germany, she said softly, her voice hesitant, to complete my violin studies. She watched his expression carefully. A flicker of emotion passed over his features, the tiniest hint of sorrow, before he composed himself. It's your decision, he replied gently. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. I want you to be happy no matter where life takes you. That night, Saori packed quietly, the sound of her zipper closing and clothes folding a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. Woojin watched silently, the pang of impending separation heavy in his chest. Every item she placed in the suitcase felt like a step further from him. He knew it was for her own happiness, and he wanted nothing more than for her dreams to flourish, but the thought of being apart from her for years made his chest ache. He told himself that he would wait, that he would be patient, that the distance would not change what they had. 8 years of waiting, he thought, 8 long years until she returned. The following day, the time to leave arrived. Saori stood at the door with her suitcase, the crisp morning air filling her lungs. Woojin approached her silently, and without words he embraced her tightly, holding on as though letting go could unravel everything they had rebuilt. Saori's eyes widened in surprise, touched and confused by his intensity. Don't say goodbye, he murmured into her hair. Not yet, not ever. She left for the airport, feeling the weight of his love and the sorrow of the separation, while Woojin returned home, his heart heavy. At work, Kango noticed the dark circles beneath his friend's eyes. Has he calmed down yet? She asked a colleague who shook his head. Woojin was still deeply affected, still shedding silent tears. He didn't speak to anyone, retreating instead to his room where he found a neatly folded letter on his bed. Its familiar handwriting made his heart leap. As he read, shock overtook him. The letter was from Saori. She wasn't going to Germany. Relief flooded through him, mingling with disbelief. Without hesitation, he bolted from the house, his mind and heart racing, navigating the familiar streets as though drawn by an invisible thread. He didn't need guidance, he knew where she would be. And there she was, standing on the bridge, her gaze distant yet resolute. Her hands clutched the railing as if steadying herself against the tides of her own emotions. When she saw him running toward her, her breath caught. Woojin reached her, and before either could speak, she began, her voice soft yet firm. I'm not going to Germany. She paused, letting the words sink in. I'm already 30. By the time I finished my studies there, I'd be 38. If I became a great violinist, your life would be consumed by concerts, by tour, by everything that comes with your career. We'd never have time together. I can't live my life like that, separated from you. I can't bear being away from you even for a single moment, so I canceled everything. The confession hung in the air, and Woojin felt the weight lift from his chest in an instant. Joy, relief, and love surged through him. Without thinking, he wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, inhaling the scent of the life they had reclaimed together. Saori melted into his embrace, tears streaming freely down her face, not from sorrow but from the overwhelming relief and happiness of being together. Hand in hand, they walked back to their home, hearts light, unburdened by distance or fear. The next day, Saori met with Tai Hyun. She explained how much her feelings for Woojin had grown over the past months, how he had always been the same person she had admired back in school, the boy she had once watched from afar, whose presence had always made her heart race. Tai Hyun, listening to her story, nodded slowly, his eyes glimmering with emotion. Woojin is a good man, he said quietly. I hope he keeps you happy forever. The conversation shifted naturally back into the playful, rhythmic banter they had shared before, a hip-hop-style dialogue that was uniquely theirs. It was a sign that all was well, that the bonds of friendship and trust had been restored. A few days later, Miss Jennifer signed her new contract with Woojin, concluding her time as the housekeeper. It was a bittersweet moment. Everyone in the household prepared gifts and farewells, showering her with gratitude for her years of support. Saori ran to her, hugging her tightly and thanking her from the bottom of her heart. Tears welled in Miss Jennifer's eyes, touched by the sincerity of Saori's words. Woojin joined in, expressing his own thanks, his heart full. The day ended with smiles, embraces, and memories that would last forever. Miss Jennifer departed, leaving the household with a sense of closure and completion. 2 years passed. Chan, now an accomplished young man, had achieved a gold medal in a prestigious boat race competition. Media cameras surrounded him as he was interviewed, and the world slowly began to recognize his talent. Later, he visited Woojin and Saori's home, where they no longer lived together but with his mother. Reunited, the three shared laughter, congratulations, and joy, celebrating not just Chan's victory, but the enduring bonds of family and friendship. Nightfall arrived, and the house glowed with warmth and celebration. Woojin remarked wistfully that it would have been wonderful if Miss Jennifer were present. Just then she arrived, having seen Chan's interview on television. The group's happiness multiplied at her presence, and she revealed that she had opened her own restaurant, no longer needing to serve as a housekeeper. Everyone cheered, and they took countless photographs to remember the day, capturing moments that would be cherished for years to come. In a quieter scene, Woojin and Saori were in their room, now married, looking out from the rooftop window at the city lights twinkling below. The photographs scattered across the table told the story of their journey, from childhood friends to separated souls to lovers reunited after trials that tested every bond they had. They gazed at each other, their hearts full of gratitude and love, finally at peace with the world and with each other. Without words, they leaned in and kissed, sealing a lifetime of joy and shared understanding. Their journey, marked by sorrow, separation, and rediscovered love, had finally reached a place of enduring happiness where every obstacle had been overcome and every promise fulfilled. Saori rested her head against Woojin's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm she had known for years yet now felt anew. She thought of her violin, her friends, her family, and the roads she had walked, both literal and metaphorical, to arrive at this moment. Each trial, each heartbreak, and each reunion had brought her here to safety, to love, to the life she had always dreamed of. Woojin squeezed her hand gently, a silent promise that this was only the beginning of the life they would build together. Together, they faced the horizon, ready for whatever joys or challenges awaited them, hearts entwined and spirits unbroken. The world outside moved on, but in that small, serene corner of their lives, everything felt perfect. The struggles of the past were distant echoes, softened by the laughter, love, and companionship that now filled every room of their home. Every glance they shared carried history, memory, and the quiet reassurance that whatever storms might come, they would face them side by side. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Saori and Woojin allowed themselves to simply exist in joy, unburdened by regret, unchained from sorrow, and fully alive in the beauty of their shared present.